Welcome to A Pair of Bookends, the book club you can carry anywhere. I'm your host, Hannah MacDonald, and I'll be bookending the conversation with some of the most exciting voices from the bookish world. Welcome to another episode in our debut Spotlight series, where we shine a light on the freshest authors and their work. Today, that spotlight is on Chloe de Lullington and her debut novel, Cacoethes. Chloe de Lullington is a novelist and screenwriter based near Manchester. She studied English literature, film and theatre at the University of Reading and was part of Edinburgh TV Festival's The Network scheme from 2021 to 2022. Her debut novel, Cacoethes, is out now and published by Unorthodox Press. And here to chat all about it, welcome Chloe to A Pair of Bookends.
Thank you for having me. Hello.
Hello, thank you so much for coming on. Before we dive into you and your brilliant novel, I do like to start by asking what you're currently reading.
Yeah, currently I'm reading a lot of military history, which is not something I normally go for. Although, so there is a part of me that has the sort of reading and viewing habits of a man in his 60s, but I try and like dampen that down because it's not helpful when you're writing commercial, like contemporary fiction for the girlies. So I always have like a sort of contemporary relevant book on the go as well. So I've just finished, recently just finished Blue Sisters, the second.
Amazing. Yeah, I need to read this.
One. Yeah, because I really liked Cleopatra and Frankenstein.
Me too.
And I quite like the cover design as well. Like, I know you're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I'm quite enjoying.
But they are amazing.
The painting style, like, there's quite a lot of those now. I feel like maybe she was doing it slightly before everyone else, so credit to her and the team.
Love it.
That's what I associate it with. So I finished that recently. I was reading that, but yeah, so I'm reading, it's a book that's out of print and it's called I Was Monty's Double, and it is just to give you World War II history. There was an operation in World War II that was, people realized that there was this guy who was in the army who looked like the spitting image of one of the leading generals, like the war tacticians, who was trying to win us the war. And they thought, what if we misdirect the Germans by putting this guy somewhere else, and then the Germans will think that we're going over there and they'll go over there and we'll actually go somewhere else. I'm really simplifying it, but it's a very, very interesting premise. And there was a film where the guy who was playing the double also played himself in the film, which I find fascinating. And it's to do with my second novel. So this is not just for fun. This is to do with the second novel that I am writing, which is still contemporary fiction for the girlies, but this really works as a kind of theme and a part of it. So I've been doing that, and then I've been reading the memoirs of the actual war tactician, which is a lot. It's very heavy going. So it's nice to have something kind of girly and contemporary alongside that as well, to balance those two. Yeah, very extreme ends of the personality spectrum there.
I love that. I will be asking you at the end what is next for you, so maybe we can have a sneak peek into that at the end. But why do you think, because when I listened to another podcast you did, it was the tarot, what was it called? Tarot interviews?
Tarot interviews. I think, he pulls the tarot cards and then he asks you a question based on it. It's such a great concept.
It's such a cool concept.
And you cannot prepare for it because like the cards
it's in the moment. You don't know what's going to happen. I will link that episode in the show notes if other people want to find that. But I feel like you referred to yourself in that podcast as quite an old soul, and you just said then that you have quite a dad
I'm a man in
taste.
his 60s. This is my alternate personality. I think partly it's I have an older dad, so that's kind of, you kind of absorb what they're into culturally as well. But yeah, I just find fogeyishness quite interesting as well. Like, I think there is a part of me that is an old man trying to get out.
I'm obsessed. I'm actually obsessed with that.
Living in a hot girl's body, but like ultimately it's
iconic.
A original commercial.
Love it. The taste of a 60-year-old man.
Genuinely, yeah, it's a struggle. It made it really hard actually to pitch Cacoethes when I was pitching it to people, because I just wasn't reading anything contemporary.
Oh my God.
And so I had like
so
no
it's hard to do the comparison, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really difficult, and I had nobody to blame but myself, because I should have just sucked it up and started reading things that, as it turns out, I really enjoy. It's no hardship to pick up like contemporary feminist fiction. I enjoy it, I love it, but there was just something really stubborn in my brain that I don't think I wanted to be influenced by it too much. So I wanted to make sure that what I wrote was just me and not borrowing from someone else. But it really shot me in the foot not having any comp titles.
I can imagine, but I love that. I think it is a really hard thing to do. Not talking about it very much, but I am working on my debut, which is scary.
This is very
And
exciting. Congratulations.
thank you. I'm just over the 20,000 word mark, so not very
Nice.
far into it, but far enough to know that, like, I want to continue with it. And having to, when I'm doing research now and having to look at, you need to consider things like comparison titles and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, freaks me out because I'm like, oh, well, I like really admire that writer and I feel like a bit of a wanker, like being like, oh, well, I'm defo like this person.
Yeah, I think that's part of the process is you have to just buy into your own mythos a little bit. You have to be a bit of a wanker, I think,
Yeah,
if you're promoting a
100%.
book.
But let's get into your book. I would love it if we're speaking about how scary it is to pitch to people. So what is your
Yes.
sort of elevator pitch for the listeners of what Cacoethes is about?
So, Cacoethes is a bisexual sugar baby coming of age novel, um,
Obsessed
which is a
with that
good way to do
pitch.
it, I think, because it contains a lot of words that are either going to make people light up or
Mm,
their eyes glaze over slightly and they're like, I don't want to talk about this. So, it's quite a good way of, it's like a litmus test for finding my people.
mm,
People are going to be interested in it and the people that are just not going to go near it. And so far, it's had a really positive reception, but I think that's partly because we've been quite canny with the marketing. I think it has found the people that are likely to be interested in it. And that's a nice thing about a small press as well, because it hasn't had this kind of massive billboard campaign. It's not
mm.
necessarily fallen into everyone's lap, but the people that have read it have been really receptive and responsive. And I think doing a lot of events and going to kind of indie bookshops and things, it gets out
Yeah.
there slowly but surely.
And you
Uh,
launched it at one of my favourite bookshops, which is Queer Lit in
Yes,
Manchester.
yeah, it
And
was so lovely. They were so nice.
it's
We
a
hired
perfect
out the
place.
basement space downstairs and we had
Yes.
it as like a birthday party as well because this book came out just before my 30th birthday. So I was
Amazing.
like, brilliant, double celebration. And it was really nice and nerve-wracking.
Yes.
It was really scary. I had a cake made. You know, they do like the classic thing of having your book put on a cake, the
Yes.
book cover. I did that. And by all accounts, it was really delicious, but I was so nervous I couldn't eat any of it. So I just sort of like looked at it and watched other people
Oh
eating it. But
no.
apparently it was delicious. So this is good. I'm glad people enjoyed it.
And you got a cake with your book cover on it. So
Which is kind of a dream come true in itself, to be honest. There's publishing the book and then there's having your book on a cake. That's a separate ambition. So done
that's
both of those now.
the goal we all have.
It is, yeah, tick that one off the bucket list. But yeah, it was really nice. It felt very fortuitous actually that it was coming out just before my 30th because I started writing it when I was 19, so there's been enough time in between starting it and putting it out into the world in a kind of slightly more polished format as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about that because, like you said, you started it when you were 19. It was released into the world around your 30th birthday. That's a big gap, and I feel like we changed
It's a
so
big chunk of
much
time,
within that
yeah.
time. Yeah. So, what was that journey like for you, and how much would you say the book evolved in that time?
I tried not to edit it too much from a dialogue perspective because it's really difficult to come back to something that you wrote when you were 19 and not
Hmm.
just full body cringe. It's really difficult to
Yeah, I can
let
imagine.
that sit. But I also think you can't, it gets a bit like the meme, how do you do, fellow kids? Like you can't kind of retrofit that.
You wanted to feel
So
authentic to that age because that's
yeah,
the
it
age
did
the
need
character's
to.
at.
And there
Yeah.
was there was some stuff in there. I was very online, kind of Tumblr-y at that age. There's a lot of kind of references and
Hmm.
phrases and things that are very much 2016 teenage girls. And that had to stay the same. And
Yeah.
people that are round about my age are responding really well to that as well. They're kind of like, oh, that was me. Um,
Yeah, you
but I
reminded me
wanted,
of Yik Yak.
yeah,
Oh
that's
my
one of,
God. Do you know what?
yeah.
When I first read that, I was like, have you just given a different term for TikToks? And then I actually Googled it and I was like, oh my God, I remember that.
It was
Like,
very short-lived, but it
yeah,
caused
very
so
short-lived.
many arguments. Because I mean, it was completely anonymous, wasn't it? You'd be sat
Yeah.
in like a bar or something at uni, and people would be yik-yakking about each other. It was essentially kind of,
Yeah.
Tattle, the website. It's kind
Yes.
of like a uni-specific tattle,
Yeah.
which is a really bad idea.
Awful.
But it also captures the era quite well,
Hmm.
just as a moment, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. It freaked me out. I was like, what is this thing? And then I was like, oh my God, I remember that happening and the uproar it caused. Chaos. What would you say was the initial inspiration for this book? What was the thing that made you go, oh yeah, this is the idea that I really want to run with?
I tried to write it as a one-woman play because I was kind of
Amazing.
Yeah, and I still haven't written a play. I can't do it. But there was the idea of the train front cover
Yes.
was kind of an idea that I had really early on as being a really easy to do one woman show where you've got maybe two seats like on a stage and they go from being a sofa in someone's house to being the train seating to being like your sofa in halls or like you're in a lecture theatre and with just one woman on stage and different lighting and different kind of sounds. I was going to try and do the story of one woman's sexual liberation going to uni. It was a like very basic premise, but I thought it could be quite striking. But I can't write a play, I just couldn't do it. So I got about 2 pages in, I thought this is not working and it's also not funny, and I don't want to be spending time on something that I don't find funny. And I think it's really easy to demonize men. And sometimes they are awful, but sometimes there is a lot of humor to be had in the very human interactions you get between sort of awkward middle-aged men trying to be something they're not and
Hmm.
awkward teenage girls trying to be something they're not. There's like everybody is pretending.
Yeah.
And so then I thought, let's do sugar baby comedy, as you do.
As you do.
And then from there, I was like, okay, what about, I'm not going to spoiler it, but what about if there was a kind of journey towards bisexuality as
Hmm.
well? And so towards the ending, that becomes even more funny because of various characters and their relationships to each other. And so it started out being kind of what if we talk about BDSM relationships, then what if we talk about sugar baby relationships? Because they're kind of on a sliding scale of the patriarchy, broadly speaking, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've got the kind of physical element of like domination, and then you've got the capitalist element of sugar baby dating, where there's this
Yeah.
very transactional
Hmm.
relationship where there's money changing hands and kind of a lot of social inequality between the two parties there. And I thought, why not make her bisexual as well? And so we've got kind of a lot of different relationships going on, a lot of realizing things over 3 years because it takes place over the 3 years of university, and I think people change quite a lot in those 3 years.
So much. Yeah,
But that
I
doesn't
definitely
mean that by
did.
the end of it you're this fully formed final version of
God, no.
yourself as well. So it's sort of like a 3 year snapshot that grew out of me trying to write a one woman play about being a woman.
I'm obsessed with that. And I think when I was reading it, I thought it could definitely lend itself to Fleabag-esque style screen adaptation if Fleabag was young and queer and
I would love that so much. Yeah. This is the other dream. So there was the publishing dream, then there was the book cake dream, and then there was the TV adaptation dream. So
it's gonna
yeah.
happen.
Fingers crossed.
You've completed two of the three, so it's only a matter
Yeah,
of
it'd be
time,
nice
isn't
to
it?
have a trifecta, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, I'm really glad that you said that actually, because I think when I was writing it, I was writing it almost as little scenes,
Yes.
kind of vignettes that all linked together rather than one coherent chronological order bit of storytelling, which
Yeah.
actually made it really hard to edit afterwards because I wrote it all in a kind of patchwork approach, and then I would come back to it and things just didn't make sense because for a whole third of the book she was the wrong age. And my editor pointed this out, and I was like, "Oh yeah, no, you're right. She actually has. She should be a year older." And then at one point, she lived in somewhere completely different, and I'd forgotten to move her out of halls, and then I'd moved her back into halls. And so
It
there is
happens.
that,
It
yeah, there
you're
is
writing over a long
merit.
period of time. It
Yeah,
these things
there's
happen.
definitely merit to being writing chronologically, and I'm trying to do that a bit more now. But it does not come naturally because sometimes I just want to sit down and write a scene, and then it kind of, it's laziness on my part, is what it is. It's a lack of
It's
discipline,
not
but
laziness because I think it's also the joys of being a creative that also has to work other jobs. Like a lot of us
yeah,
have to. Yeah, it's not an easy thing and it's hard to remain consistent as much as we'd love to stay doing our creative stuff 24/7. We
mm,
have to fit in stuff that pays us around it. And
yes,
obviously, once this book is out in the world, you can then make money off it, but the writing process, you're not always paid during. So yeah, it's hard
yeah,
to navigate those things. So as much as I think you'd like to be writing every day and be kind of, on it with every little
yeah,
thing, it's not always possible. I do want to ask you something kind of linked to that, and it's the class aspect in the book.
yes.
And your protagonist, Erin, is working class, which
Mhm.
we love to see because there's not enough representation of us. Why was that representation important to you?
I think that is I have a chip on my shoulder about it. So
You and
I
me both.
yeah, like it's quite nice when you say that to people and you get a like, yeah, same actually. And it's people that you don't always expect as well. Like I just got talking to this like older lady just I was at my brother's graduation. I was in Durham, and Durham on graduation day is quite posh.
Yeah, yeah.
And so you do feel a little bit fish out of water. And we got chatting to this woman who was nothing to do with the graduation, but she had a poorly dachshund, and so I like stopped to talk to the dachshund and got chatting to her. And we ended up talking about my book because the hustle never stops. And she kind of revealed that she grew up working class up north and now lives in the Cotswolds with all the yummy
Oh
mummies.
my
And
God.
it was so unexpected. It was like a real kind of connection moment. But yeah, I think it's quite good to talk about money. It's quite good to talk about class, and being working class is something that I know. So that was quite an easy way in. And also, I think it was Erin is working class, but I didn't want it to be that she was coerced into doing this transactional sex work type stuff because of a need to, because that's a whole other conversation. That's not funny. Like, it had to be funny. And
Yeah.
so it had to be a rebound thing where she had complete agency and she was just
Hmm.
making bad decisions, but she is also a working class girl, as opposed to sort of poverty porn where someone is compelled to, be a fallen woman or whatever. And that was, I think she had to be relatable, and that sort of came from me.
I love that.
Because, right, so if you grew up being poor and having a bit of a chip on the shoulder about it, it's quite cathartic as well, I think.
Yeah, I can imagine. And she is a really relatable character. And, like we've made very clear, it's set around the period of life of uni. I'd love to know why you think that is such an exciting period of your life to write about.
I think it's you're being let off the leash. It's that classic thing of reinvention. I think university, everybody reinvents themselves, and I don't think you know who you are when you're reinventing yourself. You go through these kind of phases. Like, I don't think I settled into who I was, like who I was comfortable being and how I was comfortable dressing and stuff for a while, because it was just like there are some things that are very inherently a person's identity, and I think I've gone back to how I was as a teenager a lot more, like the older I've got. So I've kind of come home to myself, but there
I
was
love
there's
that.
definitely a tendency when you're at uni to like try on all the personas and kind of all the fashions and all the
Mm.
it's like joining societies, isn't it? But your
Yeah.
entire personality can kind of become a bit changed by that.
I wonder if there's something as well in being a working class young person and getting to fly the nest for the first time. I don't know if it's in working class households, whether you all kind of live on top of each other and then being able to spread your wings and go somewhere else and be in that space, it just feels so exciting. I don't know if there's links there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That does make sense because I think it's not a huge detail, but Erin does have a couple of sisters, and they're all kind of she has memories of them like crammed into this really small car where they're driving
Yeah.
together, and she's in the back with the sisters, and her parents are in the front, and it's this car that keeps breaking down. And she's when her mum picks her up from uni for one of the holidays, she's like astonished that it hasn't broken down. And then because she spends a lot of time in her sugar daddy's car being kind of driven around, and he's obviously got this really swanky, wanky 4x4 Chelsea track type thing. And so there's that contrast there where she's kind of gets to experience how the other half live
Hmm.
while still going back to, as you say, that working class household where you are kind of on top of each other.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a very different lifestyle, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I like I said to you before we started recording, like I loved getting to escape back into I'm such a nostalgic person. Like I'm always looking back at like pictures from when I was at uni and just like it just feels like a whole other life and like you were living inside this bubble and it was just such a wonderful time and just
Yeah.
so exciting. You felt like everything had possibility
Hmm.
and it didn't really matter that you were making bad choices or you
Yeah.
were you were going out and drinking until whatever time and then you were coming home and ordering. Like we used to leave the student club at like 2:45 a.m. because the cut-off point for Domino's was 3 and we'd order a Domino's on the way home. It would
Yeah.
arrive and we'd be sat in the hall's kitchen eating
Hmm.
Domino's at 3 in the morning and we just thought it was the best thing ever and we'd have lectures at like 9 a.m. and
I don't know how
whether
we
we
did it.
no idea. And then I was still working in that time. I was waitressing.
Yeah.
So I was somehow like doing that, going to uni during the day and then going to work a shift in the
Yeah.
evening and then coming back and doing it all over again. Like I wish I was
I
capable
don't know
of
where
doing
the
that.
energy comes from. Genuinely, I think there is something about the maybe the freedom and the need to do as much life as possible that just kind of spurs you on. Like, it's just adrenaline and dominoes and booze, and it's not a healthy
100%.
lifestyle. But I think doing it in a 3 year burst and kind of maybe getting it out your system is good. Maybe
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, no, definitely. And I loved that her friends, they would have any kind of conversation and it would be like, oh, should we have a drink? Should we have a
Yeah,
drink? And
A lot
it's
of
so
tea and
uni
biscuits going on
specific.
as well.
No, none of that. I mean, don't get me wrong, like we loved a brew and biscuits, but it was usually the day after when we were hungover, we were
Yeah.
looking for that, and then we'd get back on it in the evening. But yeah, the amount you'd be reaching for the drink is and you were never considered like, oh, this is kind of bordering on
No.
alcoholism here. It's not. It's
It's
just
you don't really think of it as being that deep, but if you were to try and do that with an office job, that would be a really big concern.
yeah, massively. And I think they drink a lot in America, but I know that like I've heard about like American people coming here to go to uni in the UK and being like, "Oh my God, like
Next level.
they drink." Like
It's a
we
really big culture problem, I
yeah,
think.
it's really I
And then
mean,
you've got in France they introduce children to wine very young as well, so they have like a glass of dinner, and so they kind of socialize them to be a bit more normal about it.
about
Whereas we're
alcohol,
kind of like you can't have any alcohol until you're 18, and then all of a sudden you live by yourself and you can have as much alcohol as you want.
and we're just
And
feral with it.
we are a little bit, yeah, it's not a good look for us.
No. I love that. And I will return to the friendships in her uni house because there's so many of them that I absolutely loved. But I want to talk about the relationships with men that she has in this book. Like you said before, she enters the world of BDSM with a man called Aidan, and she later has a relationship with a man that's a lot older who pays her, and she has this sugar daddy sugar baby relationship. And I think the common thread between those two relationships, although they're very different, is that there is a power dynamic at play in these relationships, I think. Would you say that's fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. Yeah, that was quite deliberate because I did want to do both types of power imbalance. I mean, there's loads more, but I think those are the kind of obvious ones, and I think they are both so clearly linked to age gaps because there's an inherent life imbalance with people who are at uni and then people who are middle aged. That's an interesting one
Mm,
to look at because I'm not demonizing age gap relationships, like not tarring them all with the
no.
same brush, but I think a 19-year-old and anyone that's out of their 20s is very different to somebody
Yeah.
that's older and someone that's even older than them. So I think it was important to do both of those and make
Yeah.
them distinct and then have a little bit of interplay between them. And you can have a lot of arguments, you can have a lot of feminist arguments around age gap relationships
Mm,
and sugar baby stuff. And I think it all comes down to each person's individual reasons for doing what they're doing as well. So Erin can kind of defend everything she's doing. She's like, oh, I'm just, it's cool girl shit. It's superficially, yes, it is, but I think there's a lot of societal factors that go a lot deeper that she's not necessarily aware of or maybe willing to interrogate until a little bit later. I like to say that she's always kind of two steps behind in her own character development. She kind of
mm.
realizes stuff, but we, the reader, have realized it maybe two chapters previously, and we're kind of trying to shake her into realizing what we know.
Yeah, 100%. And I think there was an interview that you did with Diva magazine, which
Yeah.
I found there's something that you said about your writing of BDSM specifically that I found really interesting because I think the relationship in this book where you explore that, it isn't necessarily the standard of what a BDSM relationship would necessarily look like. You know,
Mm,
it's not this person that she's entering this dynamic with doesn't necessarily have her sort of safety at the forefront
not
of
at
his
all.
kind of concern. So would you mind talking a little bit about that?
Yeah.
About
So
their
what
dynamic, I mean, sorry, I don't know if that was
yeah,
clear.
I'm again not demonizing BDSM relationships as
No,
well. I
not at
wanted to be
all.
very clear about that because
Yeah,
it's there's that kind of tagline, isn't there? Like safe, sane, and consensual, and that none of that applies here. But I
no.
think it's really easy to look at something that is like kink is still quite edgy. It is like it's gone maybe a little bit more mainstream, but it's still quite taboo in a lot of places. Makes it really hard to market this novel online as well because you can't say certain words and you can't talk about sugar daddies without getting bots in your mentions going
Oh
like
my
DM me.
God.
So it's an interesting one to try and
Yeah, I can
navigate as a
imagine.
as a marketing exercise. But I think the BDSM stuff is such an obvious abuse of power, but it is also because there is a version of it that is healthy.
Hmm.
And if you are very inexperienced, it's really difficult to know that you're not having a good time until you've sort of continued having that not good time and been sort of like gently berated by your friends who point out that your partner's not actually that great. Like, does he text you? Does he look after you? Does he actually, do you communicate? It's a very
Yeah,
basic thing that so many
communication's
people
so
don't communicate.
important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially in those relationships, I've got friends that, are very much in the kink BDSM
Mhm.
world, and communication is the biggest thing for them, and that is just not something that this man is looking to do.
No, not at all.
And you're like, why do you keep going back?
I
But she's
think
young,
it's,
and it's
yeah.
she doesn't understand that the way I'm so interested in that as well. In when we're at that age and we haven't had many relationships before, we don't necessarily know what the blueprint is for
Mm,
a good, healthy relationship. We think if somebody shows interest,
yeah.
then they must be interested, but it's not necessarily the case.
I think it's also, it makes a lot of, well, it makes a lot of sense in my head why you would rebound from that situation into one that you maybe control or superficially control the
Yeah.
power imbalance a little bit more because, I mean, she wasn't coerced into the BDSM side of things in the
No.
first place. I think it's just that kind of teenage curiosity that got a little bit out of hand. And then after that, it almost makes sense to go, well, I've done that, so I'm really cool now. So I know everything
Mm,
about the world. So I'm gonna do sugar babying as well because I think then there's a little bit more control possibly
yeah.
over the power imbalance and you're making some money out of it, which is great when you're a student. So in my head, it was a very logical progression from rebounding from a really crappy BDSM relationship. Well, it's not even a relationship, is it? It's a situationship, but just
Situationship.
with handcuffs. It's not great. Like nobody should be taking this as a template for how to live your life. But it makes sense to then go and get into a relationship where you are being literally taken care of, financially taken care of. Because that's almost it's kind of an over redressal of the balance, if that makes sense. So
Yeah,
you're overcorrecting your course
100%.
in a way with that kind of horny 19-year-old brain that hasn't
Yeah.
finished working out the world yet.
Definitely. And she spends so much of this book, exploring her sexual identity, which is actually a really positive thing. And, I think that should be celebrated more than anything. It is, it's a thing that a lot of young women are shamed for. And Erin, while she's exploring these relationships with men, she does, I don't want to give any spoilers, but
It's
you've
really
said
hard,
that
isn't
it's,
it?
yeah, but I mean, I don't feel like it's a spoiler considering that it's how you market it, is that
Yeah.
it is a book about bisexuality.
Mhm.
So maybe that's the best way to say it without spoiling anything. What was important to you about the way you represented bisexuality? And I wanted to know if you felt any kind of pressure around the way you wrote about it.
Not really, because I wrote this whole thing so much in isolation that nobody really knew that I'd done it until it was finished. And I sent it to my boyfriend and then sort of shut myself in a room while he read it because I was so scared. I was like, this is the first time
That is so
anyone's
valid.
reading it. And he sent me a Word document with itemized headings that said it was called Praise for Closed Novel. And every chapter he would write down all the things that he liked about it. So I didn't need to have worried, but I was very concerned
No,
when he
that's
was,
valid.
the first person to read it. But I wanted it to be something that I would read, which meant I wanted it to be something that wasn't patronizing.
Yeah.
I don't like to be patronized by a book. Like I do like there to be kind of authenticity, and that's not to say it can't be sappy or romantic in places as well, because that is very much a part of life. But I didn't want it to be tokenistic, I guess. Like I
Mm,
wanted it to be this is a character who is bisexual, but not she's not aware of it for a lot of the time, and she's also not running around with a big flag the whole time, kind of saying, I'm doing this bisexually. But everything she does is obviously coloured by those the colours of the flag, including the front cover, which is why I really wanted. I said to the publishers that I wanted a sad girl on a train with the bisexual flag, and they delivered. It
obsessed.
was amazing. 10 out of 10.
My
But
my friend at work saw the cover and she was like, bisexual! Like she was really
yes,
excited. And
this is the reaction we want.
oh no,
Yeah,
she was obsessed. She loved it.
good. I'm glad.
She was ready to read it and snatch it out of my hands. So she said that once I'd finished, she is going to be taking it off me. So
Excellent. Well, I hope she enjoys it. Yeah, it's quite a good way to signpost it to the people that want to read about bisexual stuff. But it's not like a big explosive revelation. It's quite
no.
natural, I guess. It happens gradually over time, and there's sort of a long-running joke that she has got a real sense of a real case of like compulsory heterosexuality for a lot of the book, and all of these things that she experiences with maybe women in her life, kind of when you look back, it's really obvious, but at the time, it's not. Because I think there's this thing, isn't there, where women are socialized to be so much more intimate with their friends, and you don't always notice that you've gone from being like really good best friends with somebody to being sort of passionately in love with them. And
Mm.
it's very, especially as we were talking about the kind of drinking culture around university, it's very easy to do stupid things when you're drunk and then dismiss them in the cold light of day. And you're like, oh no, it's just what everyone does. And so maybe it takes a little bit longer in that kind of fog of alcohol and like very intimate female friendships to realize that maybe one or two of them aren't quite the same as the others.
Well, I mean, yeah, female friendships are very intimate and very intense by nature. And I love talking about that. I'm so fascinated by how different female friendships are in terms of the way men are with their friends. It's just like polar opposites. And yeah, I think when you're exploring your own sexual identity, like it must be really difficult to kind of realize, oh no, actually, this is more than a friendship. I feel differently about
Mhm.
this person. And I think societally or socially, we're conditioned to believe that since the beginning of time, we've been conditioned to believe that no, that the norm, quote
Yeah.
unquote, is a man and a woman. And that obviously isn't the way that we work as human beings. So I think, it is something that as young people, it's a really difficult thing to explore within your identity. But I thought it was really great the way that, like you said, it wasn't this explosive realization. It was just something that gradually came to her. And she was like, oh shit, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Now, I do want to get into the other relationships in the book, specifically because we're talking about female friends. The friendship that most interested me was Erin's friendship with Molly, because they fall out often, they
Yeah.
disagree with each other's choices, and they're described at one point as magnets. Can't stay away but get too close, and the poles reverse, and you can't stick together either. Why did you want to write about this type of friendship?
I have never actually had a friendship like this. So it's people have been asking friends of mine which one of them is
Oh, I
in the book.
hate that.
And I'm like, no, because it's not actually any of them. But I'm taking it as a compliment because it means
Yeah,
that they're
feels
believable
real.
enough, but also like it's not anyone. I think on a really practical level, the three friends that Erin has sort of arose out of me having arguments with myself because it's really hard being a baby feminist and you're getting bombarded with all these messages
Hmm.
and you don't really know what's the quote unquote right way to think about things and interact with the world. And so on a practical kind of writing exercise level, they each arose out of a slightly different angle on
Mm,
feminist topics. And Molly is sort of the extreme version of, I guess she's sort of quite radical feminist and she gets a bit swerfy. It's like sex worker, exclusionary, radical feminist. She goes down that path towards
yeah.
the end. She's very much kind of like a militant lesbian. I mean, she starts out where she's bisexual and then she gets quite militantly anti-men. And you can kind of see why. Like, I wanted a lot of their arguments with each other to be, you can kind of see where each of them are coming from.
Mm,
But she's the extreme sort of like lesbian separatist version. And it doesn't, like, she is quite incompatible with the world around her, I think. Whereas Alicia is much more, oh, it's not that deep, it's fine. Like, she's
yeah.
very kind of superficial, go with the flow. And then Bo is a lot more thoughtful and kind of, if this is working for you, that's fine. But is it working for you?
We love
And
Bo. We
yeah,
love Bo.
good. I'm glad. Yeah. I think it was a bit tricky not to make her too much of the fan fiction term Mary Sue, where you're like this perfect angel that everyone loves. I tried not to make her like that, but I do think she is the nicest out of all of them.
100%. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's a great character.
She's just really sweet. Like, I think she's quite a nice respite from all the other crazy shit that's going on in this book. She's quite like, you come back to Bo and she'll, give you a biscuit and she'll chat to you. But I think Molly needed to be extreme because otherwise Erin's decisions there would have been no like pushback against them, I think. And it wouldn't have been, you can't necessarily interrogate ideas to quite such an extent if you don't have two really oppositional like characters to literally give voice to them. So Molly was quite useful. She's really frustrating though. Like I did when I was writing her, it was very much a case of like, girl, just shut up. Like it's not that deep. But sometimes it is. And I think there are like I know people that do approach the world very kind of politics first and very
Hmm.
much through a lens of various kind of feminist dialectic, and that's absolutely fine. But I think Erin's sort of somewhere in the middle where she kind of ping pongs between these versions of feminism, I
Mm.
guess.
Yeah, absolutely. She was an interesting character, and I think at times I was also eye rolling at the stuff she was coming out with. I was like, oh my God, shut up.
Some people have said they really see themselves in her,
Oh,
which
wow.
has surprised me. Not in a bad way at all, but I really wasn't expecting people to be like, "Oh yeah, I'm Molly." And then they were saying, a couple of people have said as they got further through the book, they were like, "Oh no, I'm Molly." So that
Oh,
was that was really interesting. I wasn't expecting her to be a relatable character at all. She's just me having an argument with myself.
but I mean, I don't think you demonize any one character. Like,
I hope
even,
not.
like, yeah,
Yeah,
even like Aiden, like, he's a massive dick, but
he
like,
really
you
is.
can see, at times you do get a flicker of what might have attracted her in the first place. You'll get
Yeah.
a glimmer of it, I'll say. It's not more than that for
No,
him,
it's
but
really not. But I think that's probably all you need when you've got a kind of overactive Tinder account. And I mean, she shouldn't have had her filters up that high, and he shouldn't have had his filters down
no.
that low. Like they are both sort of in the wrong, but he's just worse. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I wanted to make it. I was quite conscious about not demonizing the men in particular because it's really easy to do kind of two-dimensional cartoon villain
Yeah.
bad guys, and that's not what they are, I don't think.
No, and it sort of closes off any kind of positive dialogue that could come out of, exploring relationships like that and
Mhm.
why, those men might be problematic. But if, that a man like that might read themselves on the page like that, they might be like, oh, like, I'm not listening to this.
Yeah, I think if it's not kind of human and humorous, then people are much less receptive. I wanted to make it understandable as to why she would go there in the first place.
Yeah, I think you do for sure. I want to go slightly off topic here and
Mhm.
mention a part in the book where David Bowie's death features in the novel.
Yes,
That's not a spoiler.
that's not a spoiler,
Sorry, guys, it's
unfortunately. That
not
is
a
not a spoiler.
spoiler.
Yeah.
And Erin takes it quite badly. And I really wanted to know if there was a celebrity death or whether it was that you found particularly difficult.
So I genuinely woke up first thing in the morning and saw the news of David Bowie's death, went back to sleep and thought I dreamed it, and then woke up and he was still dead. And I was like, no, this can't happen.
Oh,
Because, 2016 was the year where all the celebrities started dropping like flies. I think that was
yes,
Alan Rickman as well. There was, I can't remember the rest of them. Those are the two kind of
there
big
was
ones.
quite a few, yeah.
There was a lot. Yeah, there was definitely people say that we entered the bad timeline because then Brexit happened, all the good celebrities died, and then
Hmm.
now we're in this situation. But that was quite an easy way in for me because I was genuinely quite devastated. Not to the obsessive level that she is, but
Oh, she takes it so hard, bless
she
her.
does.
It's
But I
horrible.
think there's parasocial relationships are fascinating to me. And I mentioned before that I was very kind of online as a teenager, very like Tumblr-y, very fan fiction-y, very not to the point of developing like strong parasocial relationships, but it did it did hit hard when there
Mm,
were celebrity deaths. And it was like, well, obviously it's sad because it's the death of somebody that you admire and you've got a lot of them on your Spotify playlist, but it's not like your grandparents. It's not, you don't know them as a person.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think it seemed like a really good way because she's with Hal, her sugar daddy, and he's like, oh yeah, he's being all kind of worldly wise about it, but he's obviously upset as well because this is somebody that he's a fan of. And so it seemed like a really nice conduit for their relationship to kind of develop and deepen, I guess, because
yeah,
they see each other in maybe not a justified state of grief because they are just both fans of his. It's not like there's a personal loss there, but it maybe humanizes somebody even further to see them in a state of grief, even if she deals with it in an insane way.
yeah. No, absolutely. I thought it was really devastating, and I've not actually had touch wood. I've not had any celebrities that I mean, there's been celebrity deaths that I've been really sad
Yeah,
about, but like not to the extent of like where I'd be devastated, but there's a handful of people where I'd need like a day off.
yeah, yeah,
Like if Beyonce goes, I'm not surviving, I'm going to be so real with you.
yeah. I think that's worth the day off. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
100%. We need a National Day of Mourning for that.
yeah.
International Day of Mourning for Beyonce.
I think it
Um,
could be on the card, Yeah.
yeah, I would be devastated, but yeah, I hadn't yet experienced that, and I was like, God, when you age, like there's certain things that you just don't consider, and that is one of them. That like these people that you've had parasocial relationships with, that
Yeah.
you believe that you know, but you don't. Like, how do you grieve that person when you don't actually know them?
It's really weird, isn't it? I think David Bowie was quite an obvious choice in a way as well because his whole deal over the decades was a constant reinvention. I think every album he was essentially a different person. So you had like the kind of Aladdin Sane, Ziggy Stardust, Thin White Duke. They were all very different
Hmm.
personas, like physically and creatively as well. And for a book that is about people putting different versions of themselves forward and interacting with other people who are also putting different versions of themselves forward, it seemed like I don't spend a huge amount of time on it, but it is very much there as a plot point, and it seemed like a nice way to bring together some of those themes.
Oh, she's good.
Thanks.
She's good. There's plenty more that I could speak to you about, but I'm going to squeeze in one final question about this book, and that is there's a conversation with. We're going to get sentimental here, but there's a conversation between Bo and Erin where they imagine what their life is going to be like after
Yes.
uni, and I thought it was such a gorgeous conversation. What did you envision your life to be like by now? And do you think graduate, how do you think graduate you or just about to graduate you, graduate you? I'm making up phrases now. How do you think she would feel about the fact that you've now got a published novel in the world?
I think she'd be a bit surprised considering she would have only just started writing it and had never shown it to anyone, like never really did any writing groups or anything, which is quite impressive to have done an English degree and not really shown anyone you were writing. Um, but I think she was very shy and she was very awkward and she didn't want to make mistakes in front of people, I think, which I'm a bit less sort of precious about now, which is
It's
good because
something
I
you
think
learn over time, isn't it?
you do, and I think I mentioned earlier that because there is practically 10 years between starting it and then this book being out in the world in its finished form, there's a bit of distance in between, kind of emotional distance as well, so
Hmm.
you can be a bit more, what's the word, objective about it. So there are things, I mean, there's whole characters that I took out of the first draft, and there's whole kind of plots, subplots that I took out, and it still came in at like 84,000 words. So clearly I could have edited it a bit more. But I think the stuff that's in there is very cohesive as
Yeah.
opposed to when I was writing it, because I was writing it just for me. It was like, and then we put this character in who is a thinly veiled version of someone I find annoying at uni, and it got quite petty.
Yeah.
So I've taken out that stuff, like stuff that doesn't actually serve the story. And I think I'm a lot calmer now than I was because I think it was very easy to start writing it because I was a 19-year-old who used to hang out in the smoking area all the time, just talking absolute bollocks to people.
It's all part of the uni
And
experience now.
it is part of it. It is, and I think I did have to get it out of my system, and I think I had to get this novel out of my system. And now it's kind of you almost excise it and you put it in a box, and then I can come back and read it whenever I want and go, well, yeah, I don't think I agree with that anymore. But it's kind of packaged off, which is a really nice way of processing and kind of immortalizing, I guess, those 3 years as well, because that's kind of my own personal little time capsule,
I love
which
that.
is yeah, it's a nice thing to have. It's very self-indulgent. It's an incredibly self-indulgent novel, but I think it's um hopefully that's what gives it the authenticity.
Definitely. I don't think it's self-indulgent at all.
Thanks.
I really enjoyed this book and I'm so excited to chat to other people about it. Before I ask you for your recommendation, Chloe, I do want to ask, going back to what we were talking about at the very start, what is next
Mhm.
for you?
Yeah, it's another contemporary messy girl novel, which
We
is
love them.
apparently the only thing I can write. So it's quite easy to you sort of pick a theme or a sort of bad trait of somebody and then you turn it into a novel. So this one is a bit of a weird one because it's Nepo babies. And I
Mm.
mentioned that I have a chip on my shoulder about the working classness of life and kind of the inaccessibility
Hmm.
of the world when you are a working class person. And so this is what if a working class person suddenly became a nepo baby through their parents suddenly becoming very successful, kind of like an overnight success type thing, which then changes their life overnight from being working class kid on a council estate to being sort of quite lauded and quite in the art world specifically. And
Amazing.
I think if that had happened to me, I would have completely crashed out. I think I would have been like insufferable. I think my ego would have been off the charts. So it's quite a good, um, it's quite fun to write it, but it's
Mm.
also quite horrible because it's all my worst traits going into this one character. And the way that the military history thing comes into it is because the character is very much, she kind of emulates a lot of this older masculinity that she sees around her. So the kind of her father is older, and she's very much kind of trying to be him, but not trying to be him. So she wears a lot of sort of like military greatcoats, and she strides around and she's sort of like knows all this random shit about military history, but in a very kind of, oh, you don't know that, what's wrong with you? So whatever she knows, however random or kind of meaningless, it's very meaningful to her. And if you don't know something, she's going to make you feel really bad for it. And if you try and understand her work, she's going to make you feel really bad for it. If you try and understand her dad, she's going to make you feel really bad for it. And so I won't give too many spoilers, but ultimately she works out, or she realizes that her dad isn't 100% who he says he is. And given that she's built her entire identity on being this famous artist's daughter, she then loses the plot in about 3 different ways. So I'm still kind of finishing it off, but I'm trying to immerse myself in that quite warlike men's world, I guess, through the stuff that I'm reading. And there's a lot of kind of doubling and a lot of duplication and a lot of people pretending to be other people in it as well, which is something that obviously I'm fascinated by because I keep coming back to it without realizing it. And so that's where this I Was Monty's Double, which is genuinely quite a fun story, but it makes a lot of sense in the context of the book that I'm writing.
That's so exciting. I can't wait to read this, and we'll have to have you back.
Yes, yeah. This is an incentive for me to finish it now because it's been about 75% done for about 2 years. So the more people I tell about it, the more I have to actually like crack on and do it.
Yeah, no, it sounds great.
Accountability is king. Yeah.
I love that. Nepo babies, art world, father-daughter dynamics. I'm sold. Can't wait. Lastly, before I let you go, Chloe, I do like to finish by asking for a recommendation. So is there anything that you'd like to recommend to the listeners?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, and I feel like it makes sense for it to be kind of topical or thematic.
Amazing.
And so I'm going to recommend a book that I didn't realize existed until I'd already written, and I think I'd already signed the publishing contract for Cacoethes by this point, but it's a book called The Old Man and Me, and it is by Elaine Dundee, who is a writer that I've never come across before, but I think she's quite prolific. And it is set in the 1960s, and if I was a writer in the 1960s, this is the book that I wish I had written. So it's a young American heiress, except somehow through a really weird twist of fate, her fortune that she was supposed to inherit from her dad has ended up with an old British man who I think is possibly her mum's second husband. Like there's some weird chain of inheritance that means that she gets no money. This old British guy gets all the money. So she sets out to seduce and possibly kill him. And it's really, really good. It's absolutely insane. And I didn't know that it existed until I picked it up in a charity shop.
We love a charity shop find.
It's so good. Yeah,
so
literally.
Good.
There's one near where I live that is bright yellow. It's all secondhand books, bright yellow bookshop. And this was just standing on the shelf. And because it was called The Old Man and Me, I thought, well, that seems like a bit of me. So I picked it up, read the blurb, and it was a bit of me. So I can highly recommend that if you want something that is sort of Cacoethes adjacent, but in the 60s.
Amazing.
And yeah, it's not very bisexual, but it is, there's definitely some kind of age dynamic, class dynamic, money dynamic things going on there
we love.
I vibe with. Yeah.
We love. I'll pop a link for that in the show notes for the listeners. That sounds great. And I very much want to visit this bookshop. So
Yes.
I'm coming your way, Chloe, and we're
Excellent. We'll get a coffee, go and do some book
go and do
browsing.
some
We'll be in
book
there for
shopping.
hours.
Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on A Pair of Bookends, and thank you for this wonderful book, Chloe.
Thank you so much for having me.
Where can the listeners find you on social media?
So I am on Instagram at Life in the Clo Lane, which I am almost legally bound to tell you. My boyfriend came up with the name for that because every time I get a compliment for it, he's like, "Tell them I told them. Tell them I came up with it," and he did come up with it, and it's a very good name. So I am at Life in the Clo Lane on Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky under CDLUL, which is obviously nicer than Twitter. So come and find me on there as well.
Amazing. I will link those in the show notes. Also, links for Cacoethes are in the show notes. Go grab yourselves a copy. Go give Chloe a follow, and hopefully we can have her back again for the next book. Lastly, if you've enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to rate, review and subscribe. And if you want to give us a follow, you can do so at A Pair of Bookends Pod on Instagram and at A Pair of Bookends on X, even though we don't really use it anymore, sorry, and TikTok. And that is all we've got time for. So thank you so much for listening, and thank you once again, Chloe.
Thank you.